presentation, go ahead and raise your hand, because this could be a little bit confusing for people who are not used to fandom. So I'm going to try to give you some basic background information. Alright, fandom. First of all, the word fandom is kind of a new word. You're unlikely to find it in most dictionaries. The dumb part comes from things like kingdom or freedom, so it's something having to do with fans. And the word fan here doesn't mean the kind that you keep yourself cool with. It actually comes from the word fanatic. The word's over 100 years old, the word fan. But fanatic means somebody who's obsessed with something, maybe just a little bit crazy. They're so interested in it that it just takes over their life. So fandom is a subculture or community of fans. So it's a group of fans getting together because of their common interests. Now, the word fan doesn't always mean fanatic anymore. It's used in some different ways, some of which are more toward the obsession side and some of which a little bit less obsessed. So, for instance, if someone offers me tea, I don't really like tea, so I would say, I'm not a fan of tea. I'm not talking there about obsession, I'm just talking about whether or not I like it. I'm not a fan. The other way that fan is usually used is for sports. So people will say, I'm a Bobcats fan. Now, some fans are more on the level of liking or not liking tea. They're like, oh, I'm happy when the Bobcats win a game, but, you know, it doesn't really matter. And some sports fans really are obsessed. I'm sure you've seen pictures, you know, on TV when they've got the fans up in the bleachers and they're screaming and they've painted their chests and all sorts of strange things. So fan can have a range of meanings. And it can have a range of meanings when we're talking about fandom as well. So sometimes fans are really obsessed with their topic, and sometimes they're just interested. But what we're talking about today is more the obsessed kind. They're more fun to talk about, for one thing. Alright, so, the fans. What are they fans of? A wide range of different things. Books, television shows, and movies are probably the most common. Also, video games, anime, manga, and comic books, cartoons, plays or musicals, and even actors or musicians. And I've tried to get a wide range of different media to put on this slide. So we've got...
Johnny Depp.
What's that?
My favorite, Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp, yeah, there are Johnny Depp fans. You can get with the fandom and talk about him a lot. We've got Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, obviously, Harry Potter, Pokemon. So there are a wide range of things that people can be fans of. Fandom, first and foremost, is a creative obsession. So it's not like they just sit there and think about it all the time. They actually do something with their obsession. So first of all, we've got online communities. You can find these most commonly on Facebook or Tumblr, sometimes on message boards.
Explain Tumblr.
Come again?
Explain Tumblr.
Tumblr's like Twitter, but with pictures rather than just writing. So if you check out Tumblr, you'll find all sorts of pictures on the front page. And these online communities like to talk a lot about the things that they're obsessed with. So for instance, the TV show Lost, which I don't know how many of you have heard of. It was an American show. It was on several years ago. But it was a very strange show. All sorts of mysterious things happened on it. So the fans like to get together on message boards and talk about what happened this week and what do you think this means and what's going to happen next and so forth. So we've got the online communities. We have fan conventions. If any of you have heard of Comic-Con, that is probably the most famous fan convention. So the fans get together and they buy merchandise, and sometimes, for instance at Comic-Con, they invite in the actors from TV shows and so forth, and the fans get to talk with them. People dress up, people do all sorts of crazy things at conventions. Cosplay is dressing up. Cos is short for costume, so making costumes and dressing up in them. You've got fan art, which I'm going to be showing you some examples of. Fan vid for video. Filk is fan music. I don't have any idea why they call it filk. That's not something that I do very much with fan fiction, so I'm not sure. One of the common kinds of filk, actually, is people who have taken the poems from The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and have written their own music for it. So if you go on YouTube and look up some of those poems, you will find people who have written music for them, and fan fiction. So I've got some examples of fan art here. Fan art can be silly. Someone commented that Gandalf and the dwarves in The Hobbit was a little bit like a teacher with a bunch of children on a field trip. Someone drew him that way. I love Bilbo and the little papoose. Fan art can be serious. Something from Harry Potter. All the examples that I did today were Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. I figured they'd be the most familiar to the widest group of people. And here's one, again, from The Hobbit, an illustration of the dwarves. So fan art, I mean, some people think fan art, oh, it's really poor quality. Some of it's just gorgeous. I had to put in 2 because they were so pretty I couldn't stop.
Anybody know what scene that is?
Yeah. Good morning scene.
The good morning scene. Good morning.
What do you mean by good morning? Costumes and cosplay. Some people do really amazing job of these. I think that these 3 are actually all women. I wouldn't swear to it, but I think they are. So we've got Arwen from Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, and then Merry and Pippin from Lord of the Rings as well. Some people put a lot of time and effort into some of these costumes. I really wish I could sew because I'd like to do some of this. There's also fan video, and I've got a couple to show you. Do you guys remember the World Cup a few years ago when they had it in South Africa and everybody had the vuvuzelas? Yeah. They were really loud. These funky trumpet things.
So, World Cup. What sport is that?
Soccer.
So a few years ago they had the worldwide soccer competition, and they had these big horns from South Africa that were very loud.
Yeah.
Even I think in that song of Shakira, this time for Africa, it was also shown.
Mm-hmm. It might have been Shakira's stuff.
Yeah.
Let's see if it'll load this time.
I was say she used to play, so yes. So Hyla knows all about it.
So we engineered the new Mazda
If you want to probably make it
CX-9
full screen. Oh, that works too.
The ring must be cast back into the fires of Mount Doom.
I cannot do this alone.
You have my sword.
And you have my bow.
And my axe.
And my vuvuzela.
Man, you ruined my vuvuzela. Oh no, wait, it's working.
Somebody obviously was having a little bit of fun there.
And their roommates probably hated them.
Oh, probably. Especially if they did it without headphones. Alright, Potter Puppet Bells.
Ooh, Hogwarts is great. This is the best place in the world. Yes, Hogwarts is so much fun. I love to learn. I love magic. I love you, Harry.
I've got bad news, kids.
Oh no, what is it?
The Dark Lord Voldemort is attacking Hogwarts.
What will we do?
I don't know.
Now Hogwarts is mine.
I am Snape, the potion's master. I must stop him. Avada Kedavra.
Avada Kedavra.
Ah.
Here he comes.
It's time to die. For you.
You can't do this.
Oh, yes, I can. Avada.
Wait.
What is it? Hey, blast.
Father. What are we going to do? There's nothing we can do. We're finished. Wait a minute. I've got a plan.
Oh, children, where are you?
We're over here.
Well, here I come.
Wait, we're a little more to the right.
Here?
Almost. That's right.
I don't see anybody here.
Okay, ready? Shoot him! Yay!
What's going on in here?
Snape, you're alive.
So it would seem.
We love you, Snape!
What the? Hey, quit that. Oh, you kids. I love you too. Now please get off me.
No.
Alas, a cornucopia of love. Aww. The end.
I think Harry Potter would have ended very differently if they'd used guns. There are a whole series of Potter Puppet Pal videos. There are 2 on the main website, which is potterpuppetpals.com. And then they actually made real puppets and started doing them with real puppets. So if you go on YouTube, there are a whole series of them. Okay. So this is some example of fan videos. There are obviously serious ones as well. I just thought the funnier ones would be more fun. And then finally, fan fiction. This is one of the most common forms of fan work. Fan fiction is stories that use the characters or settings of films, books, television shows, etc. And they write their own stories based on them. So, for instance, I would say that there are 2 main reasons why people write fan fiction. First of all, they want more. One movie was not enough. They want more. They could create unofficial sequels or prequels. They could add in the scenes that they never showed in the movie. For instance, you know that these 2 people must have had this conversation, but you never see it on the screen. So they write the conversation. Or more adventures for your favorite characters. So if you have a TV show and they have an adventure every week, and then the TV show gets canceled, write your own. Yes?
Would you also put alternate points of view there?
Yes.
For example, looking at the tea party at the beginning of The Hobbit through one of the dwarves' perspectives.
This is some really good food. I think you'd probably be most of it.
This hobbit doesn't seem to want us here.
The other impulse for writing fan fiction is what if. So, what if Draco fell in love with Hermione? What if someone from our world ended up in Middle-earth? This is very common, actually. People from our world who are fans of the books suddenly find themselves in Middle-earth, and they join the Fellowship of the Ring and have this great adventure. What if the characters from Lord of the Rings were modern high school students? This one is also very common. There is some kind of unusual vocabulary in fan fiction, and that's part of what you have on the handouts there, is this list of vocabulary. So if you go to check out any fan fiction, hopefully this will help you understand what on earth they're talking about. So for instance, shipping. Shipping is when you want 2 people to be in a relationship.
Relationship.
So the ship becomes shipping. For instance, someone might say, I ship Ron and Hermione. So I want them to be in a relationship. I'm happy that they're together. OTP stands for one true pairing, which means the couple that you think should always end up together. Eowyn and Aragorn is my OTP. I don't want him with Arwen, I want him with Eowyn. A crossover is a story where 2 fandoms meet. So, for instance, Harry Potter and Frodo become friends. What happens next? Canon refers to what actually happened in the official or original version. So if you change substantial things in the story of The Hobbit, for instance, you turn Bilbo into a female hobbit, right? That would not be canon. That's not what's written in the book. OC stands for original character, which means a character that the fan fiction writer invented that isn't in the canon. So Bilbo has a younger sister who goes with him on his quest. She would be an original character. Mary Sue, this is kind of an odd term. It's a female original character that is overly perfect. So, for instance, my friend wrote about a new student at Hogwarts. She's beautiful and as smart as Hermione, and is great at Quidditch, and Harry's in love with her. She's such a Mary Sue. So they just took this character and they made her altogether too perfect. A one-shot is a story that's only one chapter long, so quite short. A drabble is even shorter. A drabble is a story that is only 100 words long. So they had to sit there and count. Make sure you get 100 words. And finally, RPF stands for real person fic, which is stories about real people like actors, band members, etc., instead of fictional characters. This is maybe a little bit less common. It kind of depends on which fandoms you're in. From what I understand, there's a lot of One Direction fan fiction right now, because the band One Direction. I don't know. I think they're British. I just have heard that there's a lot of fan fiction for them right now. I've also read fan fiction for Johnny Depp. So, story about somebody meeting Johnny Depp and they had this adventure together. It was so great. So that would be real person fic. Fanfiction.net is one of the websites where you can find fanfiction. It is the largest and most popular fanfiction website in the world and has nearly 2.2 million users from 173 countries, and fanfiction in over 30 languages. So this list here, and I think that's probably kind of hard to read from where you're sitting, is a list of some of the countries.
Everybody's country is up there. I can see it.
First one is Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. And the whole way down to Zambia. So people from all these countries are writing fan fiction. Obviously, because the website was started off in the States and got most of its most popular in the States and in the United Kingdom, most of the fan fiction on there is in English, but there's plenty in other languages as well. So an example of this, I actually have an account on fanfiction.net. I've written fanfiction on there. Just in the month of January alone, this is how many people came to just my account. And I'm not famous by any means. But I had 1,488 users from 50 different countries. So that's just one account.
Of people who read your stories.
People who read my stories, yes. And so we've got a wide range here.
You are oddly popular in Singapore.
I noticed that. I don't know what's up with that. Yeah. One thing that I have to say about fan fiction is that it has a very international flavor because it's very common to have people say, I'm writing a fan fiction in English, but, be kind in your reviews because English is not my native language. A lot of people write in a language that's not their own, and many people translate fan fiction as practice for other languages.
I was going to say, I years ago wrote some fan fiction, and I had someone from Germany contact me, and she asked if she could translate my work into German. Mm-hmm. I let her. I have no idea the quality of the job she did because I speak no German, but...
Yeah, I had the same thing actually, and I think she was German as well. But it's very common. I had to do a foreign language test for my program. I had to work with Dr. Burton, who's upstairs. He's in the Spanish department. And I just had to translate something that was 500 words long. So I actually translated a piece of fan fiction. It's kind of interesting to see how you can translate words like elf and dwarf and orc into Spanish. It's not vocabulary you generally use in the everyday world. And finally, I have a couple of quotes here. J.K. Rowling probably isn't going to write any more Harry Potter books. That doesn't mean there won't be any more. It just means they won't be written by J.K. Rowling. So the fans have kind of taken over. Actually, there was someone who wrote, they were prequels to Harry Potter. They're about James Potter, his father, and his friends, and their adventures. And this person wrote these fan fictions basically for his son, so he could read them to his son as bedtime stories, and eventually he actually got them published. Now, many times it's difficult to publish fan fiction other than on the internet because there are copyright laws. But J.K. Rowling actually gave him permission to publish these. I know, it surprised me too. They're not official. It's not like she had written them, but she gave him permission to write them. J.R.R. Tolkien himself, in a letter to Milton Waldman in 1951, wrote, "I would draw some of the great tales in fullness, and leave many only placed in the scheme and sketched. The cycles should be linked to a majestic whole, and yet leave scope for other minds and hands, wielding paint and music and drama." So in other words, when he was writing the Silmarillion, his great big mythology, he left a lot of them kind of sketchy. They're written like fairy tales. They're not written like novels. And he actually was hoping that other people would write them in and would paint them and make music for them. So he actually kind of invited people to write fan works in this letter. Okay. So if you have, I can tell you about some of the stuff on here as well. If you want to know more about fan fiction, I've got some resources on here from the internet. First of all, there's fandom encyclopedias. For instance, in Tolkien, you are probably going to, at some point, run across a name and say, who is this person? What are they talking about? That happens a lot with his work.
Lots of characters.
Lots of characters. So there are fandom encyclopedias, and I've got some here for Harry Potter and for Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. And you can look things up on these websites, and they will tell you everything that is known about that character or that place or that piece of history from Middle-earth. Same with Harry Potter. If you run across some fan vocabulary that I didn't give you, and there's quite a lot of it, I've got some sites there for that. One of those, UrbanDictionary.com, being the last one, you may have heard of. If you run across English slang that you're unfamiliar with, that's a good place to look it up. I end up looking things up there all the time. Somebody will use some word and you're like, what does that mean? And it's not in a normal dictionary. It's probably going to be an Urban Dictionary. Fan fiction, I've got fanfiction.net, obviously, and archiveofourown.org, which is kind of the up-and-coming website.
And much easier to navigate.
Yes. Well, fanfiction.net is so huge. It's very difficult to search things out in it. For fan art, there's DeviantArt, which is where I got most of the fan art here, and Tumblr. And FanVid, of course, is on YouTube. There are other places as well. And, of course, you can always Google search. So, for instance, if you want fan videos for The Hobbit, Google FanVid Hobbit and see what comes up. So does anybody have any questions? Anything you're curious about with fandom?